Hello and good morning or good afternoon if you're in my time zone. Um, Today's just one of those days I really needed to sit down and take a break and do my makeup because sometimes I've been not even been prioritizing it and giving myself the chance to. And that's always super frustrating when you're not doing, little moments of self-care. If I'm not taking 30 minutes to do my makeup, I'm also not taking, an hour to go to the gym or, half an hour to cook like a meal with like produce in it. So I'm trying to set myself up for success and to take care of myself a little better because this week has been a little bit frustrating with some outside agencies that I've been working with. Little things like failing to call back. And I missed an appointment, which is always hugely frustrating for me because I am not the type of person to do that. But I don't really like dropping balls, and that's kind of what it feels like. It's not actually a big deal in the scheme of things. But it's not how I like to operate. And I've put my social media timer back on because I've been spending way too much time online. So the way that works is it's actually an app that will just block other apps for me because I don't have the willpower to do it on my own, which is fine. You do what you have to do to kind of survive. This is the Milk Elf Power Grip Primer, which is new to me, and I don't think I used enough last time, so I'm gonna use a little bit more. I'm still trying to get used to how this feels and how it's supposed to work on my skin. But I've been becoming a little bit more informed, at least on social media, of some bigger things that are going on. The quality of content you get may be heavily skewed and heavily biased, but at least you're getting exposed to what you need to look up and form an opinion on. So I've been kind of experimenting, at least in that regard. And one of the more interesting things, because my husband and I are getting ready to sell our home soon, is the interest rates are going to, we think, right, come back down here in the next couple months. They might even dip below the 5%, which is good if you are in the buying market. That tends to stimulate the home buying economy just a little bit. But obviously we are also selling, so we still have an interest in maintaining our home's value and getting it on the market. And there's some other things that like some people were saying about wanting to, you want interest rates high, you want your home's value to go up, because that preserves like the equity you have in your home, and it helps you profit off the investment that you made, which I think is problematic for a couple of reasons. One is that when you make it so that people can't buy and enter homes, they can't buy and enter your home. So you talk about how much your home is worth, how much money your home is worth. It's just never tacky. At the end of the day, like, it's only worth what people are willing to sell it to buy it for. So what's the point of having a home that like, oh, I bought it at $300,000 and now it's doubled in value. It's over $500,000, right? Everybody want to hit that $500,000 mark. But it's like, if people can't afford it to buy it at $500,000, it's not worth $500,000. There is going to be a cap and a slowing down of that value. It is not going to rise indefinitely. That is actually what led to that belief that home values won't go up, is what led to the housing bubble and burst in 2007. So, like, you really, really, really need to understand that homes, while they are in many ways treated as an asset and may be viewed as an asset, they are still a commodity. You have still purchased a thing, and things, when they are used, tend to go down in value. And that is why you actually have the new homes tend to cost more per square foot than used homes. Like that's the reasoning behind that. That's not like builders being greedy. That builders tend to build very, very economically. At least, those nationwide building chains tend to build to the bottom of the barrel, is to keep those homes affordable. The other reason you don't want your interest rates to go up, if you think somehow that's going to benefit you financially. There aren't even mowers in our yard. That's loud. Oh, they are in our yard. Okay, I'm sorry about that. It's not going to benefit you financially, because if you ever want to sell your home and you ever want to liquidate that equity that you've built up in your home and no one can buy it, you haven't done yourself any favors. There's this kind of like belief that, well, if you're if you're rich and you've made it, that's a stationary place, and it's not a stationary place. There's plenty of people, myself included, right? You buy what you think is going to be your forever home, and then you, I don't know, get pregnant. You don't like the neighborhood. You get a promotion. You get a demotion. Typically, you don't get demoted, but right, there's lots of reasons that you might be looking to transition your job or transition your home due to a job transition. Apologize for that. They are like right outside my window. Or just have a change in your life circumstances. And you might want to move yourself. And guess what? You can't either. Because even though your home price has gone up, the home prices of everyone around you, their homes have gone up. You're not living in a bubble. And I think that's what like a lot of people don't understand is, and I'm sorry if that sounds condescending, but it is a little bit like, I think it speaks to your own level of privilege, where you've never had to worry about finding a home and finding affordable housing, if you've never considered how that impacts the entire ecosystem, because your needs have always been taken care of. I had that experience once when I was overseas. They were talking about the New Zealand economy, and it was hard to find homes. I don't know if it's still true, but at the time it was difficult to afford to buy a home in Auckland. You rented, or you did not live in Auckland. And the tourist, my husband and I and our children were with another family. He was talking about how much his, the value of his home was going up. And she's like, well, why don't you just sell it and move into another home? An even bigger, nicer home. Like if your home was, if you bought it for $200 and it's now worth $400, go move into a $400,000 home. And he's like, that's the thing, we can't. We'd probably lose money. It would be the exact same home that we're in now. Like, she couldn't understand that, like, the rise of housing costs affected everyone around him, and that it wasn't just his home went up and everybody else's stayed the same. No, he couldn't afford to move, even though his home had doubled in value. So you really don't want to have that as someone who's ever potentially going to move, because it basically traps you in your own home. So you might think, well, I've made it, I've got the equity, I'm letting the capital increase. But if you can't liquidate those assets, then you're locked into your home, and you are just as broke as the people who can't buy a home either. In fact, you're actually perhaps even more so broke, because you're limited on what you can do and afford now that you have that mortgage over your head. And then there's also, considerations that it makes all housing more difficult to find. So your rent actually goes up. it makes it more difficult to refinance your home. Like the idea that you are going to just live in your home forever is a very, very antiquated idea. Most people do buy more than one home in their lifetime. Still, even though home ownership rates are declining in the U.S., that is still the trend. So I just feel like that's really short-sighted, and that's just something that's been bothering me recently because I've been having to get back into real estate. I'm not a practicing real estate agent, by the way. I decided to forgo that and go a different direction with my life. But I was qualified to sit for the exam. I was one exam away, and I decided, no. But that's okay. I like experimenting with new areas. I like knowing that maybe something's not for me, but I tried it. I tried it before I said I didn't like it. So that's still kind of important to me. No regrets. But that's just something to consider. If you are one of those people who thinks that interest rates should go up and that home ownership should become less affordable, you are in the minority, and your opinion, and this is not to criticize you personally, but right, there's a difference between facts and opinions, and your opinion does not match the numerical impact of what actually happens when rates go up. Affordable housing is something that you want other people to have. Like, you don't want homeless people around you. If you're so concerned about your property value that they actually devalue your property, which is a thing that happens in some places. If you're that concerned about your property value, that's not blended at all. You don't want people unable to maintain their properties around you, which is something else you need to consider. If you're so concerned with your property value, you would actually make sure that other people's properties are lifted up around you, and that other people had access to safe and affordable housing. Because that, in the end, is better suited for you, but also for everyone. It's this idea of a rising tide lifts all boats. And that is exactly the attitude that you should be having when you're talking about economic prosperity. Is you cannot prosper in a society in which the average person does not prosper, because I hope I'm not bursting anyone's bubble, but not really. Sorry, not sorry. You are not special. You are not going to be treated differently. You are not part of the 1% elite. If you are part of the 1% of elite, congratulations, you're engineering the game to suit your own needs. This isn't for you. You know exactly what you're doing because you're manipulating the rules of the game. But for the average person, you have bought into a fallacy, and thinking somehow you're going to be exempt from it, that it's not going to impact you negatively, it's going to impact all those other people negatively. And newsflash, you are all those other people. So that's just kind of what's been on my mind as I've been looking at home ownership and what some of the political perspectives that have been pushed out are, well, not everyone should be able to afford a home. And it's like, no, everyone should be able to afford a home. And maybe not everyone could buy, but rising interest rates don't help people buy. It doesn't help people rent. It doesn't do what you think it's going to do. There it is. I'd love to see the day where renting or owning a home is a personal choice and not driven by financial decisions. But as of right now, it still is. And it needs to be the decision, in an ideal world, of the people who are looking to buy or looking to rent. You do not, and this is my opinion, right? I'm moving from fact to opinion. You do not have a moral position on determining how affordable someone else's housing should be. And if that means that your house doesn't skyrocket, so be it. You are not entitled to an economic system in which you benefit at the expense of other people. Can you benefit? Absolutely. Should you benefit? Absolutely. But again, you should not rig the rules of the game that once you're in it, other people are kicked out. They don't have a choice to live in this society, and they don't have a choice to live in this economy. And it's in my humble opinion, it's immoral to deliberately make conditions in which other people are deprived of choice. And that actually stems, or impacts, really, not stems, but is reflective of a lot of other areas in life. And so we're not just talking about homes, we're really talking about this expression of your rights ending where mine begin, like that type of attitude, and just not engaging in mistaken politics or economic policies, which in this country is economics. Your economics are an arm of politics, right? So it is one and the same. You actually do not have a right to increase your own growth at the expense of someone else, which I know is always it's tricky to say, because a lot of people actually do feel that way. They're like, well, I worked hard. And I'm like, you didn't work harder than the homeless guy. You just had access to medical care and had your PTSD treated. like you didn't work harder. It's like, you didn't work harder than your spouse. She just gave up her career for your family. Like, you didn't work harder. Like, there's all sorts of like common misconceptions about the people who have succeeded. In fact, there is a study done on winners and losers in Monopoly, and the participants were given very unequal Monopoly hands. And obviously I think it was like 10 games, so like the 10 players who were given like a huge advantage won. And the players that lost, they were in on it. They're like, yeah, well, of course I lost. I had $500 in starting cash, and the other person had 10,000. Like, how was that going to impact it, or whatever the actual number was? They were very aware of that. And the players who won, though, who were obviously aware that they'd also been given an advantage, were, when they asked, like, how did you win? They didn't say, well, I had 10 times the starting money, or whatever the number was. They all said things like, well, I had an advantage, but I played better. Or, yeah, I had an advantage, but it's not about luck, it's about how you used the luck. Like, they tended to attribute their success to a characteristic or an attribute. It's kind of like false attribution error. I've never heard it applied in this context, but that's kind of what it feels like. Ooh, that's crazy. I got so much in my... Oh, it's because it's all over the wand here. My hair here. Where you credit people poorly for their work that you've done, you actually credit yourself more highly for the work that you've done than is actually deserved. And they didn't acknowledge the role and impact that the starting position had in their life. And that's kind of what I'm observing now with people who are like, well, I worked hard, I deserve this. And I'm like, no, you don't deserve it. There is no rule that you had to be successful in life and secure your dream house, or secure a home, or have a nice job. That success and that I don't know if it's luck or effort. It doesn't really matter. You are not entitled to that to continue your shoot. You're not entitled to continue that winning streak at any point. So like the fact that you were able to own and afford a house does not mean that you can then price people out of a point. It does not mean that you can ethically, I mean, you can legally, a lot of this stuff is perfectly legal. Legally, then try to price people out of the housing market, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think it's a lack of humility and pride. Well, not a lack of pride. I think it's too much pride for people who engage in policies that screw the majority, believing that they're going to somehow benefit, and then they find out that they've been lied to, and of course they're not really going to be benefited from it at all, and then they get even more mad, and instead of getting mad at themselves or the people that enacted the party, they get mad at the people who they were trying to screw over for not successfully getting screwed over enough, which is just I think it just shows like a lack of emotional immaturity on your part, that you were willing to play the dirty game, and then when you didn't win and you lost, you then blame other people instead of your own choices that put you in that position. Because again, you're not special. You aren't more entitled to a house than someone else. And that's from the moral perspective, but I kind of started off talking about from the economic perspective where it's not in your best interest. I got strangely passionate about this because I did go from talking about like, how can people actually believe this? Like, do they not understand how like the cost of housing works? But I think some people may not be informed fully. Some people might hear this and be like, oh, that's not true. I heard it from so-and-so. And I'm like, okay, look it up. You know, everything, you know, you hear on the internet should be taken with a grain of sand. So go look it up. Go, you know, talk with economists, educate yourself on the issue. You don't have to take my what I say at face value. But just, I don't know, it's so hard to get people motivated to act in their own self-interest. It's kind of weird. People are so willing to hate other people rather than take that hatred and turn it in on themselves, which is good, right? You know, I've had depression for a long time. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of envious of people who don't naturally do that. Right? Like, turns out there's a whole group of people who can go on in their life completely fine with their own internal monologue. And I'm like, oh, that must be a nice thing to have. Me and my internal monologue don't get along, and I'm constantly having to do cognitive behavioral techniques to get my internal monologue to shut up. Oh my gosh, I have so much makeup on my teeth. But it is what it is at the end of the day. I don't want other people to have depression, but I do want people to care about other people. And I don't think those two things go hand in hand. I think you can care about other people and absolutely not have depression. So that's what I would like people to take. I would like people to, before they endorse a policy because there's going to be good for them, to look at how it's going to impact other people. And when they find out that they are other people, maybe that can be an enlightening moment for people to go, oh, we have more in common with each other than we have differences. And I think that can be a wonderful uniting opportunity where all of a sudden you don't want to buy into, you know, entitlement or privilege, where all of a sudden you want to help out your neighbor. That would be kind of like an ideal end state, I think, for a lot of people. You know, like, I want my house value to go up, but I don't want, you know, to screw the entire economy. I'd be happy, honestly, if I just break even. because I had to sell my home a little unexpected because we're moving sooner than we thought. But I just hope that it makes you a good person on the inside, and that's really what I'm hoping for this world. So I did my looking good on the outside, so I can feel good looking on the inside. Here is the palette that I used. Very lovely look, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Remember, beauty is on the inside.